Hey guys, Andrea Boccard here, host of our great podcast, Beyond the Books, the podcast that brings entrepreneurs behind the scenes of accountingdepartment.com's lessons learned from the trenches, where we really do share it all. So whether you're an entrepreneur, just looking for some tips and tricks, interested in company culture, growing your business, figuring out best practices, or you're just getting started and are looking for everything, we really are here to share our failures, successes, wins, losses, pain points, laughs, and hopefully a lot of laughs along the way. And really share with you what we have been up to. So today, we are actually talking about something kind of cool, and I'm going to save the title for a second, even though by the time you're listening, you might know this. Um, and I'm gonna start a little differently. It's Monday morning here in New York. It's about 10:14 in my world, but Amy's in Texas, so she's an hour earlier. Amy, I'll tell you, 10:14 looks beautiful. So
Okay, all right, looking good.
so it's Monday morning, and typically Monday mornings, Amy and I would be in our weekly leadership team L10, and we would have done something that we look forward to every week, and we would have shared our bests of the past week. And if we had had this L10, which we aren't because we have a lot of people on the road, so we took the opportunity to record our podcast instead. But if we'd had this L10 this week, I would have shared that my son, who is 11, who plays on a really, really, really solid lacrosse team for all you sports parents out there, he won the TriStar Long Island lacrosse tournament this weekend, and it was really exciting, and it was beautiful weather, so that was great because next weekend's gonna be awful. And it was funny because there's so many things about this team that I really love. And he's new this year. He joined last year, and it was a really formed team. They only took a couple of new kids. And the team has the best parents. I'm telling you, and I've seen it all
Mhm.
in sports world at this point, but the team has the best parents. The kind of parents were like, one kid gets out, like Logan's a FOGO, a face-off specialist, so it's that's a tough position to be in. All eyes are on you at the exact moment it starts. And all the parents are going, "You got this, Logan. Let's go, Logan." And everything is really positive. And I've been on teams where it's not like that, where the first thing something goes wrong, a parent and this kid shouldn't be on the team. This kid shouldn't do that. This kid was terrible. Can you believe? Can you believe? And they start chipping away at things. And this team is nothing like that. And it's crazy because they're really good. I mean, they're 11, so let's keep it in perspective, but they're really, really good. And they win a lot. And the thing is, though, even when they lose, the parents are fantastic and the kids are fantastic. And the day he joined this team, everybody was welcoming him and they were kind and they made space for him. He wasn't like treated like, oh, who are you? You got to prove yourself first. There was none of that. And I thought to myself, one, this is great, but two, how crazy it is that that stands out to me.
Mhm.
And it did, and it really stood out to me that this is not often the case when it comes to teams. And it's not always the case that you're going to be in this situation. And when I talk to the parents on this team, a lot of them have been there since their kids are in kindergarten and they wouldn't even dream of going anywhere else. They love it. They love the coaches. They support them. They never say a bad word about them. They are literally all one team. We're all feeding each other's kids. We're all supporting it. We're all great. And the culture of this team is so strong and you can just see it and you just want to be a part of it. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because today we're going to talk about something that I think is just so similar. And it's our culture, but it's the foundation of what, drum roll please, we get to announce officially tomorrow, which is that once again, accountingdepartment.com has been included on Inc.'s Best Workplaces of 2024 list. And that is a huge honor and very, very connected to me in this way of just finding these really special places that you just want to hold on to and just figure it out. Like, how did you get to be this great when I know there's so much toxicity in other places? So today I've brought on Amy Harold to not only listen to my best thing because I couldn't imagine not sharing it with someone this week, but also because Amy, who's our director of training and operations, has a lot to add about how it is that we've created this workplace that people feel the same way about. And so, Amy, first and foremost, best workplaces, three-peat. We did it. I'm such a sports mom. We did a three-peat. Um, we did it again. We won.
It's
This is
so
the official
exciting.
announcement.
It's so exciting. I just feel so proud, like, to
I
be
know.
part of an organization that continually, strives and makes the, you know, reaches that bar every year. Yeah, it's exciting.
It was funny this year because I actually turned to everyone. I'm like, hey, you guys want to apply for this again? And I remember everyone would be like, what would the reason we wouldn't? And I said, I don't know, just making sure we're like still want to
Right.
get this recognition out there, you know? And
Absolutely. Forever.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then they took a while with letting us know when we got nervous. But
Yeah.
yeah, so this is definitely not our first award. In fact, as long as I've been here, we've won quite a few. We've won Entrepreneurs Top Company Cultures, Stevie's Best Business Accounting. This year alone, we also won Top Accounting Firms by the Woodard Group, which is actually, I think, just awarded yesterday, in person at Scaling New Heights. Well, this is like award season for us.
Yeah, it is.
We need like the Oscars red carpet or something. This is great. So, best workplaces. What does this mean to you? Because I know what it means to me. What does being included on a best workplace mean for you?
I'm going to have to kind of, it all starts with something that Dennis talked a lot about last week, and he's talked about on his previous podcast, which is building a company that he wanted to work at. And I think that's where this all starts, of building a best places workplace. And it's something that when I got into training, that I've really shared with new staff as they come on, and is that everything that we've done here has been built off of our experiences from our careers. And we've been given the opportunity to implement things that we wish we would have had for us in jobs that maybe were toxic or didn't provide feedback or weren't flexible. And so we've all taken those ideas in the spirit of Dennis and Bill encouraging that, and been able to create an environment that really fits our needs, and we know will fit the needs of so many people. And so it's kind of viral. It started with Dennis, and then I think it goes throughout the various teams, and it catches on, and people want to keep doing it. And it makes it's a lot of fun. People really are excited about the opportunities and all the things that we get to do. And I think it catches on.
For the longest time, especially in like the first few years I was here, and I've been here for a little over half the company's history. The first few years, I remember whenever we would do something really cool, or create an opportunity for people to be involved in something that was special, there would be sort of murmurings like we have to figure out how to tell people about this. We have to figure out how to
Mhm.
share this with people. How do you tell everybody about this like sort of intangible thing that is such a main undercurrent of the company. It's a foundational component of who we are and what we enjoy, and it's what makes it so special. But we also want to share it with the world. And I remember having this sort of struggle with like as the marketing person being told constantly like we have to figure out how to share this, and I'm like, I don't even know. Like, am I supposed to write a blog post? Like, what are we doing? How do I capture the essence of something? And that's a constant struggle in my life anyway. But there was this constant sort of idea, like, well, how do we capture it and tell other people about it? Especially when it comes to hiring, of course, because we want people who would love this and would fit into the culture and contribute to the culture. We want them to know, like, this is the right place for you. Look at this great stuff. It's really hard to capture it, and yet I feel like in some ways with awards like this, we get closer. At least we sort of get to put this big sign up that goes, "People agree."
Right. It gives us a little bit of validation that we're not just saying this, we actually have some proof that, we really are uh, reach, reaching this standard.
Yeah. So the proof is funny, right? Because for those who don't know, the way Inc. Best Workplaces in particular works is somewhere around January or February. We fill out this long application, and the application is usually completed by myself with some support from HR, because they have specific information that has to be checked off, whether it's benefits or number of full-time people, et cetera, that they kind of give me that stuff. And then the rest of it I fill out, whether it's, how do we approach certain initiatives, engagement, opportunities, growth, all of those things. And then the biggest part is there's a survey, and the survey goes out, and it's sort of like a funny thing, because they tell you like you can't incentivize your staff, which of course, like you don't want to be like, hey guys, for every great survey reply, I'll give you, so that's would really be the lack, it would really be distrustful. So there is absolutely a survey component that's really important, and it goes out to everybody. We have no idea. Here's the thing that drives me nuts. I have no idea who takes it. I have no idea what they say. I don't care about that. No idea what they say, actually. I'm all for the anonymity. Problem is there's like a percentage. You need the most people to complete it. And so you don't know who hasn't completed it, because then you could possibly know who did complete it and what they put. I get why, but it's frustrating because I need people to respond, right? And so
Yeah.
because you're on the receiving end, and I'm like all month, I'm like, hey, don't forget, there's a survey. Don't forget to fill it out. The survey responses are due this day. And you kind of have to like walk a fine line, because you're not supposed to like overly encourage, but I also like really need you to answer. So, whatever it
Mhm.
is, just answer. And then the best part is we get the results. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
get individual, they're still anonymous. But before we find out if we make it or not, we get the results. And the results, I mean, Amy, I think you were the perfect fit for this podcast, because I know that you spent a lot of time on these results.
I did. I
So,
did.
but what do these results tell us?
So this is fun for me because this is the first year that I've actually seen the results. Um, uh, you guys share them with the leadership team, and I did. I immediately went into, analyzing mode and kind of broke them out and categorized things. But it was exciting for me because I saw so many opportunities. It was fantastic to kind of put into buckets like what are the top 5 things that we're doing great and how do we keep doing those things. But to me, more importantly, where were the bottom 5 things or the 5 opportunities that we consistently saw in the survey results? And we're going to, we've put those things on our issues list, and we're going to tackle them because we want, we're constantly trying to improve and hear, we want to give feedback, but we're very open to hearing feedback. And Dennis talked about this a lot last week with transparency. This is not a one-way street. This is not us just telling people what needs to be done and telling people what we want. We want to hear from everybody in the company what would make your day more enjoyable, what would give you more job satisfaction, what are the parts that you just don't love, and then how can we work towards that. And we're never going to make 100% people happy, but there were some great ideas in there, and I thought there were some things in there that were really worth digging into. And I'm excited that now we get to do that. And hopefully, some of those things will now be in our top 5 bucket next year because we're going to tackle it. And that's why I think it's viral. It really grows is because people see us making a conscious effort to listen to the staff feedback and do something with it. It's not just a box that someone drops a suggestion in that never goes anywhere. We really do try. Even if we can't do everything, we do our best to do as much as we can.
So I think, and I love that you brought up the suggestion box, because the suggestion box is like one of those like archaic concepts of like corporate culture in America. We're like, oh, well, you can tell us anything you want at any time. There's a box. We put a box there, and you can put it wherever you want. I mean, they made like entire sitcom spoofs on suggestion boxes. I'm pretty sure
Right.
The Office has probably half a dozen. Um, but it's funny because I agree, and I think that the any company that's utilizing these survey results not solely to win an award, but to also improve their company is most likely also on this list of best workplaces, because it's all sort of that self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're going to put the effort in to getting the feedback, and then you're going to put the effort into analyzing the feedback, well,
Do
it's
something. Do
from
something with it.
there.
Yeah.
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 So it's interesting because we did used to have the virtual version of the suggestion box, and that had a lot of pain points. I mean, I would say there's other areas of being a best workplace that we've tried, things have done well, things haven't necessarily gone well. And I actually think that if Lisa Arquetti, who is our HR director, were on the call today, she would say the suggestion box was one of the worst versions of pulling that out. And so for those who are listening, who are like debating, like, well, how do I get feedback? I'm going to just go on a limb and say the suggestion box is not your friend. And here's why, because we are all about feedback and we're going to talk a lot about all the good feedback and all the feedback we want and we'll get. But the suggestion box in our experience, at least in mine, was like this weird repository of where people went to vent on a bad day. And
Mhm.
it wasn't capturing like real things. It's not like people were putting all this thought into it. Like, okay, well, today it's been about 6 months and I've really considered, the full big picture. They were like coming, just like when you go to like a review site when you're angry because your hotel
Right.
messed up, they were coming for that. And while, yes, you want to hear that and you need to be able to hear that stuff, um, you know, one, we struggled because it was anonymous. And when you have something that's significant and it's an event, that you do not want anonymity in that. You need to be able to help somebody. I mean,
Mhm.
dealing with that, remember on staff calls, we would try to pull that up
Yeah.
and say, well, if this is you.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, I 100% respect the anonymity of the surveys. Um, and it's always a struggle because when you do see someone that has a negative comment, um, you do want to figure out like who is this so I can like clear this up with them. There was a particular comment that I highlighted that I was concerned about a remark that someone left, and it really bothered me, but I didn't know who it was. And I just hope that we can continue to express that, we are an open door and who there are many avenues to express your feedback to. And if you're not comfortable expressing that to your direct manager, there are lots of people in this company. You can talk to anybody. And I think that we try really hard from the very beginning to give people build relationships with the training team that's training them, with their managers as they move on, with the implementation team they may work with, like all these different people. That's why we put so much energy into, I mean, they meet every new employee meets you and every new employee meets the tech team and they meet all these different teams because we want to be sure that people have this exposure and have the opportunity to connect and click with somebody that they trust so that if they do have something that they need to take to somebody, they have, they have an avenue for that. And it doesn't have to remain anonymous at that point. But I also respect the anonymous results and that it lets people speak more freely and we can still get what we need. Like that's one thing that's nice about the survey is the questions it's not just like this blank suggestion, right? The questions are very uh, um, distinct and they're formatted in a way that really gets down to some great answers. So that's what I loved about the survey results is it gave us some real insight into
Yes.
how people are thinking.
Yeah, and I like the way it's structured because, the first three-quarters of it are essentially, your grade, your scales of sort of most likely to least likely. How do you feel? My company supports me.
Mhm.
Very agreed, somewhat agreed, don't agree, that kind of thing. And so once you sort of set the stage for all of that, and we've gotten all that feedback, then there are the open-ended questions. What can they start, stop, and continue, and all of that. And I think we got a lot of
Mhm.
really great stuff. I mean, I'd love to start with the good stuff because as you and I know, it's a common trait of ours to start with the bad because we're always looking to fix it because in some ways I think maybe we can't imagine what could be bad, but there is always going to be someone who's upset about something and we're going to deal with that too. But I'd love to start with, the I think we had 96% highly and moderately engaged, which is phenomenal. And let's talk about what were the things that made them love this as a workplace.
I remember seeing a lot of people comments. People really enjoy the people that they're working with. I think that was a common theme amongst everybody. Um, Definitely the people I remember standing out
Yeah.
to me.
And the
Yeah.
people is such a great, I mean, people is probably my favorite. my favorite one. First of all, because that is something that we have put so much effort into. And it's something that's essentially curated, that support of people, that development of people, that development of that team and camaraderie. I mean, it's the exact same thing I'm talking about with this lacrosse team. You can't
Yeah,
it's not about, it's not even about like, oh, this particular professional is so skilled that they blow me out of the water with their skill and my training is fantastic, though we get lots of, the training is great. The people you can't replicate. You can't buy that. You can't make people. People happen as a result of great other things. That's where that comes from. They're either great people are attracted to your company, great people are being developed by the culture of your company, they're being inspired to be great because of the situation, but it's a collective thing. Like you don't often have great people and crappy people in the same place. And it's
right.
because of a lot of work behind the
Yeah.
scenes.
Yeah, it is. And again, it starts from the very beginning when people come in the door. And we hear a lot of sad stories in the training department when people come in and they're very nervous about being honest, but talking about transparency. They're very honest, very nervous about, and when I mean being honest, I don't mean the obvious things. What I mean is saying I'm struggling
Yeah,
and not feeling
vulnerable.
like that is going to be, yeah, being vulnerable and not fearing that that is going to reflect poorly on them. Everybody comes in the door. I mean, I'll brag on us a little bit. I think we're an impressive group of people. I remember coming in the door and feeling a little intimidated because we've got some awesome people working here, and they're smart and they're competent, and um, you know, you want to fit in. You want to make a good impression. You want to do good work and all of those things. And so it is hard to raise your hand and say, I'm struggling, or I don't understand this. And so it's interesting how much work it takes us during that first month with people. And it's part of why we do it, is to get them over that hump of being afraid to speak up, and also being afraid to get feedback. And I don't know if I'm kind of diverging a little bit, but
That's
if I
okay.
can get into the feedback, yeah.
Yeah.
So when I first started here, I came from a company where I had a very quiet, introverted manager. And I just assumed that, I guess, no news is good news. And, um, if I didn't, I never really knew where I stood. I never knew where I stood. And it was very uncomfortable for me to not ever know. I just never had a lot of confidence. Um, but when I came here, we give feedback so freely here that it freaked me out at first because I was not used to receiving any feedback. And I felt like, oh my gosh, like these people just, they'll tell me anything, but they're telling me I'm doing a great job, but then they're also like, okay, like next time let's do it different. Let's do it this way.
Right.
And we don't even think about it anymore. So I kind of warn people when they start here, when I have my conversation with them, that, hey, you're going to get a ton of feedback. It's all intended, with your best interest in mind. It's all intended to be constructive. You're going to get good feedback, and you're going to be told what you want to do, what we want you to do differently. And we're
Yeah.
only trying to hone your skills. And once people get used to that and they see the kind of feedback they're receiving, you can just see their stress level go down and their confidence rise,
Right.
because they're not scared anymore to say, hey, I need help, or I messed up, or to make a decision. That's something else. Is when you're not afraid, you are empowered to make decisions. And it's okay if you make the wrong decision. I'd rather you make the wrong decision than make no decision.
Right.
And we start that from the very beginning. And I think it's something that just really was a big deal for me, and I think it's a big deal for a lot of people as they come here.
I agree. I mean, I came and people who've listened to a few episodes know I came out of New York City before I came here, where there you only heard if something was wrong or on fire.
Yeah.
And, especially being in the marketing department, it was very, very rare to hear anything other than if something was on fire. And you just sort of assumed otherwise. And there was a lot of disingenuous commentary as well. There was a lot of politics, a lot of a lot of girl drama. And I hate to say it like that because it sounds so sort of like, you know, unfair to make the term, but it was. And I've always found that so unique that we have such a very, very large female population here and it doesn't exist. And I get very thrown off by that. But I remember being here for years and still for years thinking like, when's the other shoe gonna drop? And then when I finally sort of shed that, and I was already living it as a manager, not, being like everybody else, but I still internally had a little bit of that scar tissue happening where I was like waiting, you never know when someone's just gonna drop a bomb on you. And it wasn't until I had people reporting to me who I had seen have gone through the same things and come in here with a lot of insecurity and come in here with that uncertainty and that inability to sort of believe that they weren't going to get hit over the head or that they were going to be supported and they were going to have feedback, good or bad, but in a positive and constructive way and not in a way that was meant to make them feel bad or feel
Right.
less than. And it wasn't going to be mean. And I've seen mean, trust me when I
Hmm.
tell you, I've seen some mean people in my career, and none of that is here. And I find that so refreshing. But what I love is actually being in the position you and I are in because we get to be the ones making sure it's so great.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that everybody in the company has at least some responsibility of making sure, but I do feel like when it comes to the leadership team, we're the champions of making it that best workplace and making sure that people are living the truths that we have set out and that we have said, this is who we are, this is how we operate, this is the company we want because it's the company we want to work for. Just like Dennis has set it out for us. And I think that that is such a great place to begin our conversation around why we get recognized, because I do think that the people is such that is a huge component, and it's probably the hardest to attain without significant effort. But there are some other things that people have
Yes.
pointed to. Now, I know when you looked at the word cloud, the biggest one was flexibility.
Yep.
And,
I just pulled it
flexibility,
up and looked. Yes.
yeah. Flexibility, I mean, it has been the biggest word that we have
Yeah.
received in feedback for 3 years running. And flexibility is an interesting thing. So it's not solely one definition, but flexibility is something that also runs through this entire company. Um,
Yes.
and so, when you get people coming in through the door, what do your conversations about flexibility look like here? Because that's another one where we have to really sort of deprogram people as to what
Right.
flexibility means.
Yeah. Yes, we really do. I think it's kind of like you were saying, people aren't very trusting of it at first. They'll, um, you know, ask permission for things a lot of times that I'm like, thank you for letting me know, but you don't need to like get my permission to go to your kids, band
Right.
concert or to take your child to the doctor. Like you don't need to ask me if it's okay if you can schedule a doctor's appointment. Like I thank you for keeping me in the loop. Communication is so important. And I think that is one thing that we harp on a lot in
Yes.
order to allow the level of flexibility that we do. Um, we have to communicate, over communicate all of our availability and our ins and outs and all of that. And it's interesting because we walk a fine line because we don't have the type of flexibility here where you can work whenever you want. Like you don't ever have to be here during the day, right? Like this isn't a job that you can just work in the middle of the night. You don't ever
Yeah,
talk
you're
to
not on your
anybody.
couch at
No,
2 a.m. You're not taking this to Bali.
right.
It's not working like that.
It's
And
not like that.
you're
So
free
we
to
have
be
to
fine,
really,
Mom.
it
Yeah.
is, and we have to really explain that to people. Like there's two sides to this, right? Like, yes, we're going to be as flexible as we can with you, but also we have some boundaries and we need you to communicate. We need a set schedule and we have to all be here during the core working hours so that we can communicate and you can communicate with your clients. This is something that you can just not work all day and then just decide to work whenever.
Yeah, you're not
But
freelancing here.
you're not freelancing
Yeah.
here. But at the same time, there is a ton of flexibility. You can kind of shift your start and end times. if you do need to be out, you can make up to your time and your work,
Right.
at night or on the weekend. Um, you know, if you need to be out, if you want to take some time, to do those things to help like take care of yourself personally, you have the time
Right.
to do that. Um, but it is a little, they're like, they do feel it's a little too good to be true
Yeah.
in the beginning. And we have to kind of set those ground rules of like, what is good communication
But so I
within
think
the
it's
company.
interesting. I think what you're saying is interesting because one thing that what you're really saying is communication is paramount, but you're not asking for permission. You're
Right.
just communicating. And
Yeah.
that is a distinction that I think people have to get used to when they're here. We're
Hmm.
sharing because we're not together. I can't
Yeah.
look down the hallway and see that your light is off, so you must be
Mhm.
out. So we have to share in that capacity. And that's something that's also a little different for people when they come in. But the thing is, it puts you in that awkward position if you're not comfortable and you're used to having to kind of like lie if you aren't supposed to
Yes.
be leaving the office. It's weird to say like, oh, I'm going to my kid's school, or oh, I'm going to my kickboxing class, or oh, I'm doing this. And then people feel like they need to ask permission. It's like, no, 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 no. Like wipe everything you've been led to believe
Yeah.
is the way to operate. Just get rid of it because we're here to support you as a whole person. And as a whole person who works from home, listen, there's other sides of working from home. You can never leave your office sometimes. Like you can accidentally keep working. I do it all the time. And
Oh
I
yeah.
actively try not to, just like I know you do, and just like the rest of us do, where we have to actually block time to not work. And
Yeah.
because you can get sucked in and look up, and all of a sudden it's 7, 8 o'clock at night, which is part of where this came from. This came from that idea, and Dennis and I talked about this on a recent episode, where we are actively encouraging people to get up, move, like go do something, because you can turn around and realize that you've been sitting because you never even had to get to work today.
Right.
You just
Yeah.
walked down your hall. But it really does. We're asking everybody when you walk in the door to redefine how you see flexibility, because in our
Mhm.
world, flexibility is it's fluid. It's a complete joining of your professional schedule and
Mhm.
your personal schedule, and understanding that the two do not have to be mutually exclusive. They
Right.
can live together in a symbiotic relationship where you can do all of this. You can handle kid drop off, you can go to the doctor, and you can have your job.
Right. Especially
Crazy, I
in
know.
today's world of all this technology, it's really not two separate things.
Yeah.
There isn't like, before we would leave our houses and we would go to our office and we were completely disconnected from, I remember having to call my mom's office from our landline and like you're just completely
Yep.
disconnected. And now it's not two separate things anymore. But it's not the world that we live in anymore. And things are happening throughout the week, throughout the day, and it's unreasonable to think that you're going to have this complete separation, and it's stressful. I mean, I remember before I came here, it was so stressful to never live up to any expectations because I was constantly juggling the two
Yeah.
sides, of being a parent and having a job. And the reality is that it is possible, but it's in an enmeshment. And it's a healthy enmeshment where you make time for both things. And it's a that's the to me, that's the true work-life balance.
Mm.
Not one or the other. It's not 50-50.
No, it's
This is
it's
your
just the
life.
ability to balance.
Yes.
It really is, and I think that's something that, especially when you get to a certain point in your life, you realize what that balance actually means. It does not mean having it all or doing it all, because we all know that is not actually possible. But
Mhm.
it does mean being able to balance all that you choose to tackle. Whether that's being present at your kid's soccer game, or growing in your career, or doing all those things at once. Finding balance it's a uniquely personal thing. Your version of balance is different than my version of balance. Some of us will take a walk in the middle of the morning, and some of us will, you know, go to pick up their kids, or some of us, whatever that looks like to you. But that is the flexibility aspect of it. And
Right.
that is why I think when people come here and they're asked what is the number one sort of word to
Mhm.
define ADC, flexibility comes out like 90% of the time,
Yeah.
because people just think I can make this into what works for me.
Right. I think another part of flexibility, most people think of this day-to-day flexibility within your schedule, but I think it's something else that we really engage in with our staff is the flexibility that you need as different things happen to you throughout life. And so that's something else that I try to encourage people from the very beginning and try to continue the conversation about is when life happens to you, we don't want you to, if you want and need to keep working, we don't want you to feel that you have to make a choice, and that we are all or nothing.
Yeah.
So, we have very flexible, not just like in our day-to-day coming and goings, but we offer a range of working hours and, for our most of our staff. And, we will make accommodations for people. So, I can't tell you how many people have had a loved one with a cancer diagnosis that they need to, you know, uh, take care of them, and they need to be, going to chemo appointments and all of the things that it consumes your life, but they can't afford to not work either. And so they'll come to me, and I'll tell them like, great, like, what do you need to cut your hours to? And we'll have a discussion and we'll come up with a plan that works for them. And I'll move clients around or get them an assistant and, reduce their hours. Or maybe we've had people that have come in and they started part-time because their kids were still young, and now their kids are gotten a little bit older, they've gotten used to working, and they're like, you know what, um, I need I need a new car, and so I need to up my hours. Like, let's just be honest, let's just be real about what our situation is. Like,
Right.
I need to work more hours. And I'm like, okay, great, like, I would love for you to work more hours, I've got plenty of work for people to do around here. And so I'm like, all right, how many more, so we'll up their hours. And so we are also flexible in what happens in life, and maybe sometimes we need to work 32 hours a week, for an extended period of time. And maybe sometimes we want to, we're ready to, we're in the phase of our life that we have a lot of energy and time around work, and we want to invest, that as much as possible. And I have people saying, I'm looking for overtime opportunities. I think overtime is something interesting that we do here too, with our staff, is that it's very limited. And I think it's something that I really appreciate, especially in the accounting world,
Yeah,
is
I think people would fall over to hear someone go, there's very little overtime in our
yeah,
accounting company,
it's like,
because
how do
most
you
people
make
are
that
like,
work?
yeah, most people are
Yeah.
like, no, accountants work 80 hours a week in some months of the
Mm-mm. Yeah, we don't. We
year.
don't. I can't even imagine
Sorry.
doing it now.
Yeah.
It's some people want it, and it's funny. And I'll, we'll find opportunities for people, or we may ask people if we're in a crunch time if they wouldn't mind doing it. But it's, we never want to staff somebody in a way that it requires them to work a crazy 60 hours
Right.
to just get
Good
their
choice.
job done every week.
Yes.
That is miserable. That is just a miserable,
No,
and you get
burn
burnt out
people
so
out. Yeah.
fast. Yeah,
And it
I
should
don't
be
want to
a
burn
choice.
anybody out.
There should
Yeah.
always be a choice, especially when it comes to overtime. I mean, you're talking about infringing on somebody's not
Hmm.
working hours, so it should absolutely be a choice. But that's an interesting area that we're sort of tiptoeing into now, and that is the professional opportunities at ADC. So, I think that from a flexibility standpoint, I actually think there's a lot of people who probably just heard that going, "Oh my God, I can't imagine ever going to my employer," or I've never thought about it as an employer, giving people opportunities to reframe their work week based on their individual circumstances at the time. And to be fair, for people who are dealing with retention, that is a fantastic thing to immediately start thinking about. Are there ways for you to retain employees who might be leaving due to personal circumstances who would otherwise stay? And therefore, what can you do to make this a livable working arrangement for them? And that's a lot of where it came out of for us. I mean, people are attracted to remote work for a reason. There's also things that go along with it. And we have adapted to that and really understood that partly as a means of retention. But then there's also this other side of this, which is we very much grow our own professionals internally. There's a lot of work that has been put into the internal professional tracks for people here. You do not simply have a one role and no growth opportunity, and eventually you have to go somewhere else. Um, I think that that is something that also catches people off guard in the accounting world, especially. Um, and we've gone from in the past 10 plus years that I've been here from really what was maybe two, maybe three levels to I don't even know. Well, I think implementation is at least five. And then
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got five, and then there's countless. I've actually lost track. You know them all.
So so when I started in 2012, as an accounting specialist, you could be an accounting specialist. There was only one level on the accounting specialist team. You could be there were controllers. Accounting specialists couldn't. There wasn't a path for an accounting specialist to go into a controller role. So you were an accounting specialist or you were a controller, and the only really advancement opportunity was to go into the implementation team. At that time, it was maybe um,
Yeah, I
two
think they're
levels deep
supervisors and
and
bookkeepers.
bookkeepers, and
Yeah.
that was pretty much it. And they honestly they didn't come around that often. It would you had to wait a little while
Mhm.
for an opportunity to become available. And then several years ago, we kind of started out. The implementation team had started growing, and we had increased to 3 roles. Now I think we're up to 4 or 5 roles over on that team. Um, but we really wanted to focus in on a career path for an accounting specialist. And so we had a goal to how could you come in the door at level A and make it all the way to a senior controller. And we have created that path for people,
Which is incredible.
which is incredible, right?
Incredible.
You could literally, it's so exciting to share this with new staff too. Like you can literally come in here as accounting assistant, and given the right, the proper time, education, and experience, you could potentially work your way up to a senior controller. There is a path for you. And so you have these various roles. We have an assistant, we have an accounting specialist, senior accounting specialist. Now we have accounting supervisors, we have team leads. We had then go into assistant controllers, and senior controllers. And now we have assistant director roles. And so it just keeps growing.
Yeah.
And then we even have other departments have grown. Your department has grown. The tech team is growing. And so this is pulling people internally that, like technology, and putting them into tech roles. So the proposal team is growing. So there really are so many different avenues now that you can go. It's like, well, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? A training team. Don't forget my training team. Training
Oh
team is
yeah, training team,
another,
HR.
yeah,
I mean,
HR,
it's
yeah,
funny because in some ways I feel like our more recent past few years focus on ensuring that connectivity from the sort of earliest entry point in the path of accounting all the way through to the top
mhm,
levels of oversight and management, ensuring that there's a connection between all of them is really the professional side of where we had been on the personal side for a long time. And we had always said, your personal needs are just as important. We support you, we support you, we support you. And while I think that at the most basic level, we always agreed that obviously the professional side is very important and we want to support. And we years ago had an ability to get professionally trained in whatever you wanted. You could take a course on something, management, note taking, whatever you
mhm,
wanted. We had access to that. But for us to really in the past few years double down and say, we now understand and we're going to create it that your professional development and your professional changing nature is just as important to your work life balance because it's like professional development is also personal development. It's
absolutely.
personal to you, it's something that matters to you, it's the development of you as a person, and we want that to happen here. We don't want you to leave.
No.
We want that to be something that you stay here forever and you grow, and there's this almost like a farm system for a professional baseball team. Like you're going to come out of the ADC ranks, and I just think that's so exciting for a lot of reasons, but it also, it connects so many dots. You've got now people who don't need to look elsewhere for professional development, who can be fulfilled in their professional path without ever having to look to another company, another path. I mean, you think about the game of life and like which career
Mhm,
you choose and growing. Like you don't have to leave. You can keep, going and um but it also speaks to our people because the people stay and they believe into it and they're buying into it and then they're training and developing the people around them. And you can look at people in this company if you're starting out and you can meet so and so who has held 6 different spots and has grown, and you can meet someone who will literally say to you, yes, I started out as this assistant and now I am an implementation project manager, or
mhm,
whatever that is, whatever your goal here is, and you didn't have to leave. You didn't
Yeah.
have to do anything except continue to grow and be mentored and trained and developed and move up. And how great is that?
Yeah. And this is another example of us listening to the feedback from people who, unfortunately, when we were a smaller company and we didn't have all these opportunities, we did lose good people because we didn't have the opportunities. And we were like, this is a problem. We
Yeah.
don't want to continue to lose good people because we don't have a path, a career path for them.
Mhm.
And then we just put that, that's where our laser focus goes. And now it's second nature, right? Now it's just part of who we are. And we love promoting within. I mean, I can think of leadership conversations where you've had to convince us to even hire for certain roles from the outside
Yes.
because we're so happy with the success and ease of somebody organically growing into a role rather than starting from scratch somebody. Now we have reached the point in our growth that we do bring people in from the outside. And I'm glad we've gotten there because it's helped us to get to the size we are. But I will never stop being a champion for internal growth. I am always going to be looking internally. And I love the conversations I get to have with my staff. And I get to ask them, where do you see yourself? Where do you want to go? What do you like? Like, what do you want to do? And what's great is that sometimes they really surprise me of what they say as maybe something that I had no idea that they had interest in. But now it gets my brain thinking, and some of the things that I have brought forward to the leadership team and helped develop have been direct results of people on my teams telling me something they had an interest in, which then gave me an idea for us as a company. And so it just kind of all feeds in together. And I that's it's just great to get to know people and what they want, and then how you can help them get there. And then they are bought in, they are loyal, they are excited to be here because someone else is invested in them and their career growth besides just themselves.
Yes, and having the support of your entire company on your career path is, I mean, first, I think it's unheard of, but I especially think it's unheard of in a 200-person company.
Mhm.
Because, I think there are 200 people companies out there that would look at this and go, well, I don't even know how to begin connecting the dots on growth. Because I do think that we hit that internal growth track much earlier than a lot of companies would have. I mean, we certainly hit it before 200 people, but I think that there's a lot that growing businesses can take. Like at 50 people, you probably are not in a great position to be connecting dots on one seat to another seat and very easily because you don't have the structure to train and to mentor in that exact capacity. But I do think that you can start very much like we did. And our very first step was to introduce senior. It
Mhm.
was really just, hey,
Yeah.
we have a ton of accounting specialists. I mean, they make up the bulk of our company. They are the workhorses of delivering accounting services, the absolute sort of foundation of what we do. And the biggest risk we ever had was not being able to afford them with the next step. And in doing so, and I think we tackled that was 2016, 17, I want to
Yeah.
say.
Wow. Yeah.
Somewhere around there was when we tackled, let's roll out senior accounting specialist. And it really was a designation. I mean, it was a promotion, but it was a designation that people could attain that would show what you want personally, which is to say, hey, I grew in my role and I have succeeded and I am at a higher level than where I was. And I want to make this super clear. It is also perfectly fine if you never want to change your role. If you love where you're at and you want to be whatever that role is, whether it's an AP specialist or accounting specialist or implementation bookkeeper, and that is what you want to be forever, that is fantastic. But
Yeah.
if you
We need
want,
those people too.
yeah, we do. And just like Dennis said last week, they're all cogs in the wheel turning. It doesn't matter what seat you're in, it's turning the wheel and making our company successful. But if you have aspirations, we want to be there for that. And that's what I think is the underlying component here. When people are coming and saying, hey, I love what I do, but I need recognition. Recognition is so important. People overlook
Yeah.
recognition and they give it a bad rap. This is not superficial. It's not needing to have your head get big, being recognized for something you are successful at is a natural human thing.
Yes.
And just like in our feedback thing, where we're constantly giving feedback, recognition is an aspect of feedback. And it is a stamp of approval that gives people validation for how hard they've worked and for how much they do. And so in creating these paths, we really do set up opportunities to recognize the employees for all the things that we already know they do great
Hmm.
on a daily basis, but it kind of adds an extra level of like
Yeah.
official to it. And that's just it's simple things like that that companies can do to create a more comfortable workplace, a happier workplace, a best workplace, an award-winning workplace. That recognition component, and I think that in combination with our reward aspect has been a major factor in the past few years where we've really sort of front and center went, we need to figure out, we need to make sure that we are recognizing, we're rewarding, we're appreciating, we're motivating, we're doing all the things that we can do to make employees feel seen for their contributions and their achievements. Um, and that's what's led to one of our more recent developments, which is our internal engagement component of our company. And I think that that's an area that's fairly new for us. You've seen it, and so the couple things that people can take from that. We talked a little bit about it last week about people ops and how we sort of have built out some of this. But one of the things that I love, and it speaks to people, it speaks to our teamwork and everything, is this year's Color Wars. How can you be a best workplaces without a great friendly competition? I don't even know. So I'm the team leader for Navy, Amy.
Yeah, I'm team black over here. This is really
Team
funny
Black,
for
which is
me, Andrea.
killing us in Summer Challenge, by the way.
Let me just tell you how funny this is for me because I am not a competitive person. I'm not a sports person. I never went to summer camp and participated in Color Wars. So this whole thing to me, I won't lie, when I first heard it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be the worst at this."
But you
And
are not the worst.
my team is kicking
You're
butt this year.
crushing it. I
And
can't
then
even.
and I've actually gotten really into it. I find it a lot of fun. My whole family is also very interested in what the latest and greatest thing that we're doing because I'm always like, take a picture with these Dennis and Bill, giant heads, or take a picture with my ADC banner, or I've got to go to bingo night, or I've got to log my racery miles, and
So
so now my family's all invested in how my team is doing, and
the
it's
best.
so
My kids are
fun.
like, "How's Team Navy going? Did you get your miles today?" So for
It's
everybody
fun.
listening who's not at accountingdepartment.com, this year, as part of our 20th anniversary, we decided to put in a fun and friendly competition, which some of us are quite competitive. And we divided the entire company into 7 teams. And the cool thing about this is even if you start today, you get assigned to a team. So whether you're like a really big Harry Potter fan or you love summer camp, you probably have some understanding of the concept of Color Wars, but you are assigned to a color named team. We've got 7 of them: black, white, gray, red, navy, light blue, royal blue, and light blue. Did I say that? Okay, I
Yeah.
think I got all 7. If I didn't, sorry. Um, but so you're assigned to this, and then throughout the year, we've created all of these different opportunities to get involved. And some of them are like pretty like kind of simple stuff, like going to book club, which is an opportunity to get to meet up with staff outside of office hours. If you love reading, this is a great place for you to hang. We have a sort of family game night, so bingo night or trivia night, which is also outside. But the big picture here is we created these opportunities to give everybody an area where they could sort of embrace and jump right into culture. And it's kind of like a choose your journey situation because no one is obligated to do anything. But because as we grow, like many companies, we have this challenge of people, newer people, or even just tenured people creating interpersonal relationships gets tougher. It was easy when we were 50 people. Everybody knew everybody. It was super easy to talk to everybody. At 200 people, there are people walking in the door right now who I meet and I'm not going to remember the next week because there's a lot of faces. So Color Wars kind of creates like a small company inside of a company, 7 of them to be exact. And there's something in the ballpark of, about 30 people per team or something. And it's cool because it creates this little sub, like your little house community where
That's fun.
everybody's cheering each other on, and you can only literally have conversations that are not work related because no one is coming in there to discuss reconciliations. You are
Right.
coming in to discuss if you hiked, swam, biked, or trivia night. Don't forget to take your ADC selfie picture, whatever it is. And people are sharing and they're going, oh my God. I mean, on my team, we're probably like, the black team's ahead of us again in summer challenge. Everybody get your miles in. But it's cool. People get to talk and they get to have, you're almost like not forced, but you're almost like handed an opportunity to have these completely non-work conversations at the encouragement of the company. Like, please connect on a completely just fun level. But it's been a lot of fun. And of course, we get to look at the leaderboard every week and determine Summer Challenges is moving. And I literally finished 10K on Saturday and I opened Racery on the walk back to my car.
I saw your miles on
Yeah.
there.
I was like, come on, put my
Oh,
Queen's 10K on that thing. But it was great because, you've got all these people in a constant community connection with each other. And
you know what
that's
I think?
the best workplace.
What I think is fun is because we all have different Zoom background colors that
Yes.
we have on. I don't have mine on today, but so I love it when we show up to a meeting, even a small meeting that has nothing to do with color wars. And there are like, two team black people, a team red, and a couple of team blue
So it's
people on
one
there.
rogue, one team by
One, yeah,
themselves. And they're like, come on.
yeah. And people are automatically like, hey, Team Black, like,
Yep.
and high-fiving each other. And there's like just this little banter about, the team colors and who's in lead and what, if there's a dominant team on a particular call, make sure they point that out that they have the majority on the call. And it's just fun. It just adds some levity to the day, which is nice.
It
It's
does.
nice to have
Great
something
icebreaker.
lighter.
I
Yeah,
mean, so
yeah.
many companies have that problem of showing up to meetings where everybody just jumps right into the work. I know on our sales and marketing calls, when we show up, there's a lot of red for some reason. There's a lot of red and a bunch of gray. But for some reason, a lot of red together always makes me think of Game of Thrones. Find it very intimidating. I'm like, Navy's over here like just chilling and red's all like blood. But yeah, red is an intense well, I mean a lot of black is actually really intense too. So I suppose if you had a lot of red and black on a team, Navy's like our company color. So
Mhm.
I kind of just show up like me, but it's fun and you're right. Even if you're brand new, if you're like day one and you show up and your background is matching someone else's, you're immediately part of a team. That's your person. You have no idea who they are, and they probably live in a different time zone, and you don't know anything, but you know that is your team member.
That's
And
right.
it just automatically creates a smile, a connection, someone to help you. I meet with the new people every week when they start here and I do 15 minutes real quick just to explain to them what's color wars, what color team are you on, what can you expect, and I introduce it as when you get to your team room, like feel free to just joke around and introduce yourself because that's the whole point. There's nothing
Right.
work related happening in that team room, and there
Right.
shouldn't be. That's not the
Right.
point. The point is for some really fun smack talk, pretending you're at the water cooler in the break room. That's what the fun is for.
Yeah.
And they love it. They're like, "Oh my God, yeah, team gray, let's go." It's fun.
Having been someone who started here when we were less, just under 50 people, and now being, right at 200 people, I will say that I have been a little, I guess, resistant inside, feeling a little bit of resistance of wanting to hang on to like what it felt like when you were a team of 50 people and you did know everybody. But I have definitely been swayed, in my opinion, of breaking us out into some smaller groups so that you do get more, you can get closer with a smaller group of people. You can really connect with people in the company on that more personal level again. So to me, it's been really fun. It's been a nice break from kind of the big company, and you just kind of feel like you're just part of something so big that you're really not part of anything, to having these smaller groups. And I'm excited to see what else we can do, in the future. How can we, while I loved our huge company get-togethers, maybe there is a future somewhere for us to do it on a smaller scale and make them more personal,
Yeah.
because they're on a smaller group. So I'm interested to see where we might go with that in the future.
I think that's a good point. And I on an even bigger picture, I'm actually just really excited to see where we go with this because there's so many things that we have done that are new already. And I can point to half a dozen things from rolling out our recognition rewards platform, which we did an episode a while back on that. But we use Nectar for anybody who didn't hear it. I would definitely go back and listen. I think it's episode 4 if you're interested in how to do employee recognition. But that's new in the past year. Color
Yeah.
Wars, new in the past year. Summer Challenge is not new, but using Racery and creating these teams, we've kind of finally honed that over the years, people getting their miles in. I think now we've kind of, Mike especially has paid attention to like what is the right size team. And I think we've kind of got it nailed down at like 20 something people. And the paths we use this for anybody who hasn't heard any of our previous episodes, we use an application called Racery, and I just want to shout them out again because they're awesome. And it's super cool because we're in Europe this year, and whenever you log a mile, it like encourages you to look around. And I've been in the most random places in Denmark recently,
Me too.
and I'm just like, look at this coffee shop. And I'm like standing in the middle of Long Island, but I'm looking at a coffee shop in Denmark, which is just fantastic as far as I'm concerned. But it's all these things that we do that are still fairly new. And I'm so excited. Like I'm excited to cut this episode next year when we win again. Because I know that we will have more things to share. I know that we will be like, oh yeah, and this year we did this, this, and this. And this year we encouraged this, and this year we grew by this. Because that's been the nature of every year. And I think that one of the biggest takeaways that businesses can do now is realize that you're not getting here overnight. Everything is a stepping stone. So, one, listening to your employees and getting their feedback is paramount. That's the first component, and not a suggestion box. Um, unless you just really want a bad Yelp review, in which case go right ahead. But but getting their feedback and then acting on some things and then continuing to move forward in that way. The other thing I would say that we do really well that speaks to the best workplace is tapping people in the company who show an interest in something. I mean, we have had people step up to run fantasy football. We've had people step up to March Madness, and they're not like specific. There's not a manager. It's not a head of the company. It's someone who just this is what they're
Yeah.
interested in. And we're really good at listening for that and seeing that and finding ways in just in the exact same way that we're looking for opportunities to promote and develop professionally. Same thing. We're keeping an ear on things and tapping people who show an interest in running. I mean, originally way back in the day, this was cardio accountants for Summer Challenge, and there were a few people who were super interested in exercise and they ran with it. Our chefs, I'm not one of them, but we have cooking. Um, I do cook, but not, I wouldn't count myself among the leaders of that group. Um, Crafters, we've got that. We've got the makerspace people. All
Oh,
of
I
these
love
are
that space.
opportunities. Yeah, all
Yeah.
of it is just listening. That makerspace group came from people just happened to be talking about it in one of our off-topic rooms. And somebody went, hey, you guys want a group? You want a place to meet? Sure, go ahead. Have fun.
That was another great opportunity of encouraging people to share their personal lives and not keep it a secret like it's some bad thing that people had
Right.
hobbies and maybe even hobbies that they were monetizing. It
Yeah.
was and I don't know if you want to share what Makerspace is. I think it
Oh,
was
go ahead. Yeah.
super cool. So I think we started it last year right before Christmas. There are so many talented, creative people in this company. Who knew? Because I'm not one of them, so I just don't assume other people are. People have all kinds of
You
hobbies
can
that they,
have your Christmas gifts from within this company. It's
yes,
fantastic.
yes, people have Etsy
Woodworking.
shops
Yeah.
and websites, and they do woodworking and crafts, and so they do all kind of amazing things that you can't
Yeah.
even think of. And we created a Zoom channel for it where people could go and advertise their wares and put up links, and we Christmas shopped from one another. I mean, how fun and exciting is that? And I learned so much about people that worked here. I was like, what? Like they can do what? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was a really cool and fun thing that we
It,
added last year.
it
And it
really
was
is.
just someone's idea. Someone in the company had an idea and we said, yeah, let's do that.
And that, listen, that's yet another example of when you support bringing an employee's whole self to work. and you really with all of your whole self support that, and you mean it and you stand by it, and you're not just putting words to something, but you truly are encouraging your employees to bring all of them to work, all of themselves to work, and you're creating forums for them to be their unique selves. The outpouring of this comes in all of these different flavors. And it comes in getting to know somebody and their hobby and their woodworking business that they run on the side. And you said it best in a recent episode where, like, for some people, this is a stepping stone. Maybe they will one day start a woodworking business. And I will happily cheer them on and talk about how we used to work together. And some of them will always just do it as a hobby because it's a creative outlet and they enjoy it. And maybe it's a side hustle. That's cool too. This is 2024. Most people need them. But it's not even important as to why they have to do it. That's not my business. It's not your,
Right.
but what's more important to me is that we get to people feeling comfortable to be who they are and to share who they are here. Because that person, the person who feels comfortable sharing that, is also the person who's going to feel comfortable coming to you if something's wrong at work, if they're having a problem with a client, if they're looking to grow, instead of just walking out the door and
Yep.
exiting stage left, and we never know why. And I think all of those things are really the reason why we are celebrating here once again, being included on Inc. Best Workplaces. Because we have, above all else, prioritized the people, and the people in turn appreciate the people. Um, and I think that that really is the overarching takeaway from this year's win.
I think so too. Yeah,
And I
I
love
think
that.
so too. Yeah.
So, with that having been said, we have yet again taken up a beautiful hour of sharing our all of the things that make us who we are. And I'm really excited about this one. Listen, when this drops on Friday, it releases tomorrow, but when it drops on Friday, people will all know at that point that we were included. You and I are one of the few that know. In fact, I think that Natalie's about to find out early because she's going to be captioning on this one. So, hey, Natalie. Um, but so I want to thank you for coming on and sharing all this with us.
Yeah, anytime.
We actually only have one more episode in this season, and then we're breaking for summer, which is another part of that work-life balance that we love here so much. So stay tuned for that last episode, which I believe is on the importance of training and leadership, but I could be wrong. So we'll find out next week. But thank you, Amy, for all of that. And thank you to everybody, including especially our employees, for whom we would not be celebrating this win if it weren't for you. So with that, we bid everybody adieu for this week, and we'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.